There is a fifth dimension.
A dimension of sound.
Damn it, Frank! We tell him to be quiet. I spilled my hot cup of Uranus again.
A dimension of sight.
Hey, Arch. I'm gonna sock you in the puss.
A dimension of mind.
Nan Adams, is that you?
Next stop, the Twilight Zone.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Fifth Dimension of Twilight Zone podcast. I am your non-waving host, Nick, and we're here to talk the Fifth Dimension, or I'm sorry, the Twilight Zone, I should say, not the Fifth Dimension, because we are the Fifth Dimension. Rod Serling's famous TV series that he loves to be ranked and created and talked about and pissed upon and shit upon, all those good things. I probably did that within a minute. So we're demonetized. Yay, yes. Until Triv comes back. As you can see, like we said last week, Triv is not here. She, of course, is off being planted it into the ground to be a ear of corn at some point in her career, her transition. So we'll see her soon. But as always, good luck to you, Triv. We'll see you when you come back. Anyways, with that said, audio feeds, Anchor, SoundCloud, Audio Boom, Google Play, iTunes, all that good stuff. Rate, subscribe. It's very important, to do our things, and stars, we gain an audience. We've actually, I have Jacob here. Jacob, hello. How you doing? Hi. I kind of went into that quickly. Our episodes have been doing pretty well recently. We had one that's almost hit 400 views, which is cool. We have one, like most of our views are compared to what they were. I don't know if people feel we're balls deep into it. People feel sorry for us. I don't know. They're mad. They're gonna
take it.
This episode, right? This episod's gonna be like 1,000 views since Triv's not here. So she's like, see what she's thinking about that.
I didn't say it.
Shit. No, it probably won't. It'll probably be the same. But yeah, Jacob.
20 minutes long.
Yeah, exactly. Because we have nothing to say. Nothing to say about this episode. But Jacob, you're doing good. Everything good. Everything grand. Your video coming out soon.
I can't complain. Everything's going pretty well. Haven't met a few hurdles with my next pieces of content, but beyond that, back on track with that. Everything, can't complain. All going well.
Hope Triv's
doing good.
Yeah. Transition. We're in a transition.
Yeah. By the time this comes out, Mr. Triv Theater will trivial guy.
Corny. She can't be here to defend herself, and we love it. We love it, people. No, I'm kidding. With that said, usually we talk over like 20 minutes about nonsensical stuff, and the only thing I can say is it's been quite the last couple of weeks have been pretty shitty, to be fairly honest, and I'm not going to go into details, but just say I'm exhausted. It's been long and hard and difficult, and Triv's not here, so she can't say that. But yeah, I mean, I was I don't know about you, but I was hoping that a podcast recording of the Fifth Dimension would help right that wrong. And we picked quite the episode for Triv not to be on, because I don't know how she feels about this. We'll have to talk to her when she comes back, but this is
whatever we say, she's probably going to say the opposite of.
Yeah, so we'll just assume that she absolutely loved this episode. It's the greatest episode since sliced bread, better than the Invaders.
Oh yeah, let's not get crazy.
No, this is not a very good episode. I mean, do you feel the same at all about that? I mean, it's probably better than last week's episode, but that's not saying much.
Yeah, it's not the greatest episode. It's not top 10 for damn sure. I don't even know if it'll be in the top half of our list, but
right.
It's not the worst. It's just kind of, there's just not a lot. There's the hook, I guess we'll call it, of the episode, and that's really it. And there's not many surprises to it either. Not many, I mean none.
The only surprise is the guy wears shoes, a homeless guy, because they don't wear shoes. They apparently wear like moccasins or whatever they're wearing. Loafers,
artillery bookshelves. That's the only surprise.
Yeah, right. Now I will have to say that I'm looking up the trivia for this now, and this episode is very familiar to me, and I don't know why. There's an episode of the Treehouse of Horror of The Simpsons called Hell to Pay, and it basically is about a guy named Snake who's like the bad boy in the series,
Named Snape.
Snake.
Oh,
No, Snape
Snake. I thought you
died.
said Snape.
Snake. Yeah, sorry, my
Professor
throat's going,
Snape.
but he's hearing the ticking of the clock. No, his name's Snake, like the reptilian creature. But anyways,
Snake
he is
Plissken.
electrocuted. He's electrocuted for robbing a bank, robbing a quickie mart or whatever he does, and
Damn.
right. It's the Twilight Zone or the Simpsons. But anyways, Homer, his hair is donated to Homer, and Homer actually like implants his hair, which grows into his brain, and he starts to become the bad guy. And he's trying to kill Bart, who witnessed the robbery and stuff like that. So the long and short of it, the long way around this diatribe is the fact that when I think of this episode, I think of The Simpsons, and that might make it a top 10 episode for me. I don't know.
I don't know about that, but this is the trope of this episode of like having something of someone who's passed and then taking on. I mean, this one just jumps right into it, but usually they take on some characteristics or something. We've seen that a bunch of times. There's I guess it's actually a movie, but it's an anthology movie that I think they were trying to make into a show back in the day. John Carpenter's Body Bags. I love that movie. I think it was a Showtime movie. It's really good though. Check it out. It's got some neat little anthologies. One of them with Mark Hamill, where there's a guy who's like you said on The Simpsons, who's executed, and he was a murderer, and his eyes. I guess his eyes were. He was a donor, and Mark Hamill's character is just a family man. Gets in a car accident or something. I can't remember. He loses his eyes, so they use the donor eyes, and he starts like seeing like some of the things this guy did and flashes and takes on some of the characteristics of this murderer. So yeah, we've seen this kind of thing before.
Yeah, I mean,
this one takes it like I said, a bit more not literal, but like more heavy. Like he just like turns into him.
Right. And I don't necessarily think it's like a bad concept. It works in the sense of the Twilight Zone. Yeah, shoes. I mean, turning into a bag. I mean, it's just the idea makes sense for the Twilight Zone. It's just I don't think it's well written. I don't think it's well directed. I don't think it's well acted. I just think it's an episode.
Well, there's not much to it besides that. Besides, this guy's spirit or whatever goes along with the shoes, and whoever puts them on kind of becomes him. He takes them over. That's it. There's not anything else. I mean, the only thing else is in the end that we find out like pretty much he's vengeful and he's not going to stop. But beyond that, there's just nothing else to this episode. It's a lot of long shots of this guy acting like another person, but we don't really know enough about either of these characters to signify that beyond when we see the change when like the original guy, I can't remember his name, the homeless guy, he's always got this dopey look, and then when he turns into the mobster guy or whatever he is, he kind of has a scowl. Right. Beyond that, there's not really much here.
Yeah, it almost feels like they're like maybe they had to cut some stuff out of the episode to make it to shorten it, because you almost feel like there would be like a segment where you see like the guy in hell or you see the guy in heaven, and he's like, I want to go back and revenge, Inigo Montoya style or something like that. But there's not really any of that, because it like literally opens up with two men in a car drive up, dump a body out, and this guy named Nathaniel wakes up from underneath a bunch of paper towels or newspaper and takes the guy's shoes, and then all of a sudden like it doesn't really specify or doesn't really show that his demeanor has changed. But you think he's like much meaner to his like homeless buddies.
Well, I was about to rewind it, because when he right after he doesn't, at that point it doesn't really show that there's a change, and maybe they're trying to keep, I guess, a secret. But then he just walks to the apartment or house or whatever, or as the apartment complex, and he has the key. First of all, I don't remember him. Did he go back?
No, he does. He like when he's going through the guy's stuff. Okay. I think it's either after he's put on the shoes or before he's put on the shoes. He finds a set of keys in the pocket. Well,
yeah, I was about to rewind it, because I was like, why is he just know where to go? And it didn't convey that he had become this guy.
It is until he gets up to the room that he does. But actually, before I actually do that, I forgot to mention what episode we're talking about, which is season 3, episode 18, Dead Man's Shoes, directed by Montgomery Pittman, written by Charles Beaumont and Oki Rich. Stars Warren Stevens, Richard Devon, Joan Marshall, and Ben Wright. Aired January 19th, 1962, production code 4824. This has one of the most annoying scores I've ever heard I know it's been in the Twilight Zone before,
Yeah,
It's
that's
so
reused, recycled.
fucking annoying. I can't stand it. It drives me up a wall. So,
Tell us how you really feel. I don't think it's the
yeah,
best, man. I won't say it like grated my nerves or anything, but
it
it's
didn't
not
grind
the
your gears.
yeah, it didn't grind my gears. But I mean, it's not the best score. But yeah, I absolutely. As soon as I heard it, I was like, "That's recycled." I can't remember from where, but I've heard that on the Twilight Zone before.
Right. And I mean, like I said, it's all about getting this guy to this guy named Dagger. But before we get to all that, let's just run into the opening narration of Rod Serling, who is apparently homeless himself.
Yeah,
I think, or does he come out of a door?
pops
I
out of
can't
his
remember
trash
which.
pile and says, "Nathan Edward Bledsoe of the Bowery Bledsoes, a man once, a specter now, one of those myriad modern day ghosts that haunt the reeking nights of the city in search of a flop, a handout, a glass of forgetfulness. Nate doesn't know it, but his search is about to end because those shiny new shoes are going to carry him right into the capital of the Twilight Zone."
Yeah, I could have carried me right into my bed so I could fall asleep and not have to worry about this episode. No. No, I mean, like I said, a lot of this, after wrestling talks, a lot of this is just how do we get the Dagger, the the boss guy? How do we get to the slapping of the woman by this guy? And
Yeah,
it
he
just
did bitch slap her.
yeah, exactly. I was like, oh, it's funny when he walks up to the apartment, or the really nice apartment, which the scene in the alleyway, by the way, I think was used in Once Upon a Time, or that one episode with Buster Keaton, I think it was. But I don't know. I mean, he gets up to the apartment and he just like forceful nature of who he is and how he's acting. You start to understand that he is now Danner. Is that what his name? Dane's. He's apparently a dog because they name him Dane. And he's like,
Dane.
see here, make me some make me a drink.
Make me a drink,
It's
you
like,
broad, you bird. You dame. I'm Dane, you dame. That's something I wanted.
Yeah.
The thing that stood out the most to me in this episode, considering what we got, why did he never ever? I mean, it's like he did everything except proclaim to this woman that I am him. I don't know what's happened, or this happened. I got killed, and bam, here I am. Or even leave that. He never said that's me, but he did everything. It's like he was like trying to get her to come to that conclusion herself.
Yeah.
But he never said it. He just like walked in, and while she does go, "Who are you? Why are you in this house?" She protests. I don't feel like she protests quite enough, considering this strange homeless man just walked in her husband or boyfriend or whatever shoes and just walked around the house like he owned the place. And she's like, "Who are you? Get out of here." And then after that, she just continues to talk to him. I'm like, I feel like most people would be like, "What the fuck?" And like, run out.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when he went to the bathroom, leave. But she just hung out.
Well, no, I mean, he makes a threat to her. He's like, you won't make it down the steps, something like that. It sounds like Dane's not a very good husband. It sounds like he's a little abusive to her. Maybe she's afraid to.
Maybe.
I mean, it's just, yeah. I mean, it's like how he talks to the homeless guys who are like thinking he's like rich. He's rich and stuff like that. He has money, and I'm like, because of his shoes. Apparently, those are expensive shoes. I mean, it's just like, what?
Alligator skin shoes. There are some nice looking shoes, though.
I mean, I guess they are for 1960s. Yeah, I mean,
they fancy looking. They look real shiny.
Right, wearing that raggedy ass clothes he was wearing as a homeless guy.
Yeah, maybe it was the contrast between those that made him look even better on that. But some swanky shoes, swanky haunted shoes.
Oh my god!
And I think this is where another one of the problems in the episode comes is after that interaction, because that was fine. Okay, up to that point, I was like, oh, okay, I kind of put it together. I was like, he's become him.
Yeah,
he's not saying anything, but maybe he will in a minute. We're building up dramatic tension here. But then he goes to the bathroom. It spends so much fucking time with him in the bathroom, and just this whole exchange from when he enters his home and the bathroom to when he leaves to get to where they're ultimately trying to get. It's just like you did all of this to ultimately convey to us, the audience, that when he puts the shoes on, he becomes this guy. If he takes them off, he goes back to himself. That's it. Nothing else in this whole entire exchange, which is the vast majority of the episode. does anything else happen? And it's that everything in this episode takes so long. Even that beginning piece that we talked about a minute ago, we kind of just like,
Yeah.
we usually take a lot longer on the things we talk about than the episode takes, but really the beginning parts of the episode they're real stretched out too, of him just taking this guy's shoes off, putting them on, and walking to his house. It seems like it takes, considering it's only 24 minutes long, a long fucking time for him to do those couple of things, when I feel like that could have been literally a minute, 2 max.
It's weird because Charles Beaumont is usually known for better episodes than this. I mean, he wrote Shadow Play, Long Distance Call. He did write Static, unfortunately. A Nice Place to Visit, Howling Man.
I mean, if they cut anything out, I don't see what. They didn't cut enough.
Oh, this is Ghost written by Okie Rich. That's why. I maybe this was like a rewrite of a Charles Beaumont script. That's probably what it was. That's probably why it sucks.
I mean, the idea is not bad. The whole idea. I mean,
no. The idea is fine. It's just not executed very well. It's the whole idea of him, like the whole idea of like being teleported or being possessed by another person it's fun. It's a fun setup, and it's been done better since. And it feels like there's just
maybe have a part where you see the guy's original psyche or the whatever that's happening there, like fighting back or something. But it's just not that. Or maybe have a part where when he's with the mobsters or whoever they are, one of like the shoes get taken off and he becomes the other guy and he's like, what's going on here? Something else to spice things up. I don't really have a problem with the basic story beginning to end, how the episode played out. I just feel like there's just not much to it. It's not even, it's very light even for 24 minutes. And they just stretched everything out. They pulled a Hobbit trilogy. It took a 10-minute idea and made it into 25 minutes.
Oh, that's interesting. Montgomery Pittman had cancer when he was directing this episode. Interesting. He died like 6 months. He died in June, and this came out in January, so it's interesting.
He saw this episode.
He killed over.
I'm going to hell.
He saw what he was directing. He saw what Okie Rich was writing to him. He's like, I can't do this anymore.
Oh shit, my career's done.
It
wasn't that bad, but yeah, it's not great either.
but it's funny because like he takes off the shoes and all of a sudden he's wide-eyed, homeless guy wondering where the hell he is.
Yeah.
And he's like, huh? What? I don't know you. What's going on here? She's like, put back on the shoes. I'm like, lady, do you really want that to happen? Like, she's like, you stole it from him.
Is he aware of what's going on when it happens, or is it like he just like blinks and he like
he goes into the deep place or dark place or whatever it is from Get Out? He's like floating there.
He goes to that library from Dreamcatcher or something.
Okay. Being chased after by monsters and shit.
This is about anal weasels.
Oh shit. No, but yeah, I mean, before the act break, that's pretty much what happens. He gets the shoes, he turns into the other guy, he takes off the shoes, turns it back into the other guy, puts back on the shoes, puts a tweed suit on, tells the dame that he wants
really
tequila
quick
with
too.
Sugar. Yeah.
He changed like super quick. It was like Superman quick. Like he was not changed. She walked out and she kind of like looked at something, turned around, and he just walked to the doorway like, where are you going, broad? And I was like, damn, was there like a passage of time we didn't see?
Was that why there was a revolving door in the apartment? He just like went around it real quick.
I guess
there's a phone booth in there.
I don't know. Maybe the passage of time, oddly directed there. That was a odd cut.
Yeah, it's like a typical bad Twilight Zone. It's always funny to watch it. Twilight, like we always remember the Twilight Zone being like the greatest show ever, and then we find like episodes like this and The Fever, and we wonder
it had its stinkers.
It did. But I mean, as you can tell, we've kind of talked about what we thought about this episode so far. It's very. I think the second half, after the act break, is much more interesting than the before, because you get a little more kind of action and suspense, and you get a little more kind of honed in on the whole idea, because basically we go to this bar, which is like a 1950s 60s bar with gangsters and stuff like that. He walks in there, and apparently all you have to do is say is, I want a tequila with was a cube of sugar.
Cube of sugar, yeah.
Like, is that a thing? Is that a thing that people did or do?
I mean, they did make a point to point out that it was odd because like, oh, I
Yeah.
only know one person that does that, and he's dead. You know, they made a. I think it was supposed to be kind of. I'm sure somebody's done it before, but I think they wanted something that was different enough to signify that people would be like,
Right. You know, it's
tequila and
just
sugar does not sound good to me, but tequila doesn't sound good to me, period.
Doesn't tequila already have sugar in it, or am I thinking of something else?
I mean, yeah, there's sugar in it, but you know, adding more.
I mean, it's like me and macaroni, cheese, and ketchup. I mean, there's no logical rhyme or reason behind it. Don't ask me why I did it. I tried it one day and I loved it. It doesn't mean I do it every time. It's like I went into Portillo. People from Chicago, who, if you're listening, it's like I went into Portillo's down here in Orlando, the hot dog place, and I put ketchup on my hot dog, and people were looking at me funny because apparently that's a no for Chicagoans.
I didn't know.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
I don't like ketchup, so I mean.
No. Well, I'll send you a bottle of ketchup for your birthday.
Oh, thanks. Put it on my shelf.
Right. No, but I mean, basically what happens is when he orders that drink, it gets the aura, or whatever you want to call it, of the attention of Daggert. And Dagger is, of course, the man that we saw drop off the dead body in the beginning, and his young cohort, young mobster, whatever, and his older mobster guy. And they're like, you know, who is that? I don't know him. And then they bring him over, and he's like, I want to talk to you privately, because, you know, that always goes well. Let's talk to you privately. He's like, I don't know you, but okay, sure. And he's like,
I takes him in with a whole bunch of other people. It's like, all right, we're private now. It's like, this is all the same fucking people. We're just in another room.
No, the best thing that happens is the bartender goes, you know, they're not real fond of people who stare at their women. And he's like, I'm not staring at the woman. And he's like looking fondly over at the guy. The guy looks, he's like, I want to talk to you in private. I'm like, oh, this is very progressive for the 1960s, especially on TV when everything was not progressive. You know, what are you doing here? Like, huh? And he's like, we need to talk.
It was going that direction.
No, it wasn't. I started laughing. I'm like, Rod Serling, I see you're trying to insinuate something here, but no, he wants to talk to him in private because he has information from a person that he doesn't want to tell him, and the 4 people in the bar, because there's only like 4 people, including the 4 of them. Like nobody else in the bar. I don't know. I mean, what do you think about this? Because like I said, it leads to, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I did, like you said, I think when we come back from the act break, from the point that he goes to the bar, this is clearly where they wanted to get. This is the story they wanted to tell. And all that other stuff was set up, which setup is fine, but you can make the setup interesting. I wish the act break was maybe more like around the time when he revealed that, I know you killed somebody right here. I wish all the bar stuff, and they had shortened that beginning piece and elongated or extended the ending, or the second half, because that was a much more interesting part when he goes to the bar, and because we know what's going on with him. We know he's the spirit of this man's in his shoes or whatever. He's taking over this body. We don't know how he died. We obviously know that these people had something to do with it. We don't know any of that. So I did like how they played with, they kind of got that information to us in a it wasn't just an exposition dump.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know the whole time of him saying, like, you know, playing the word games, and he's like, you know, there was a body right here, or, you know, more or less saying, I know you killed somebody there right here.
Yeah.
And we put all that together, and we're like, oh, okay. I thought that was well done. That was good.
Yeah. And like the realization that comes to Dagger's face is like, who are you? How do you know all this? Because talks about how blood doesn't like clean up easily, and you know, he basically starts to explain, like, I like how they take away his gun. He's like, make sure you give that back to me when you're done. He just pulls the gun out of his leg. Yeah,
like that. Why wouldn't they check that? But I thought all that was really good, and I thought that I just wish they had extended that out more. That was the interesting part, that second half. I wish we got more of that, like more of the dialogue in there, because it does seem like when he sits down in the office and they get to talking, right when it gets to be kind of interesting is when it more or less ends. Mm-hmm. Like the bookshelf thing happens, and I'm fine with that playing out the way it did. I just wish there was more there, like something else had happened and we'd spent more time there, because that was much more entertaining and interesting. But it's really all my biggest issues with the episode are everything that happened prior to that, and that was just so condensed. because it's like,
Well, I mean,
why did you condense that, but you extended all this out over here?
the main problem is they didn't even need to have his wife or girlfriend, whoever, in the episode. They
No.
could have done the thing where, like, she, or not she, but he walks to like I don't know, a store or something like that, and he gets a new suit. He walks to a gun shop, he gets a new gun. Like, you can have him do all this stuff, and you can kind of play it through like the homeless guys and stuff like that. But then it decides, oh no, we're gonna have the dame in here, and she's gonna be an abusive dame, and it's like so unneeded and so not. It doesn't add up to anything outside of just him being a complete and utter asshole of a human being. And like I said, when we were just talking, or you were just saying, it's when he's like explaining about how he's like, oh, he had a partner and you wanted him to sell you his steak or whatever, and he wouldn't do it, so you basically put a plug in him and killed him or whatever they did to him. And that stuff's interesting. That stuff's fascinating because it feels very much like what the Twilight Zone is capable to do at its strengths. But like I said, you add in all this nonsense at the beginning, and it just weighs down the episode. Like, there's so many different ways and different paths you could take to make it much more interesting. And I'm not saying like this episode doesn't have its merits when it comes to like the idea of a possessed gangster, but you could do it like Scarface or something like that. Have it build a little bit in the beginning, and then
I don't even have
I
mean,
don't
I'm
know.
with you.
Yeah.
That'd be good too. But I don't have a problem with him going to the house and getting dressed and all that and seeing the wife or girlfriend. But it just spent so much time there. Like, they could have spent at least half as much time that they spend in that whole, from when he gets to the apartment to when he leaves. And hell, even before that whole part to before he gets to the bar, they could have condensed that down to half as much, and we would have gotten just as much information. And it may have actually been interesting. But anything that would have been interesting during that time that we're learning, first of all, is just kind of like hammered home repeatedly. So it just becomes kind of monotonous. And also is just kind of like, okay, come on, guys, move on. Let's go. Let's get going. Where are we going with this episode besides the fact that this guy's been possessed by some shoes? What are we doing here? And it just takes so long to move past that. So I just wish they had cut that down. They didn't need all that time. I'm fine with them doing that. So he gets dressed and all that. Do that, move on, spend more time with the more interesting part. Or hell, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if they had spent more time in the end, then that would have seemed monotonous. I don't know, but I just can speak to what I'm feeling. And that second half was a whole lot better than that first half. First half just drug on and on.
I mean, basically the best part about this episode is when the guy comes out of the bookcase, or not the bookcase, but the guy comes out of the wall. Yeah. He's like, I already figured that would happen. And then the guy shoots him from the bookcase. I'm like, that's some good trickery right there. Like, I kind of like the idea of like somebody hiding in the bookcase and someone hiding behind a picture frame or something like that. And he's like, he does the whole, you're never going to get rid of me. I'm going to keep coming back for you. I'm going to come back for you. And I'm going to come back for you till you die. And then what they do, they dump the body in this, and they dump the body in the same place they dump the other body. It's like, at some point, the police are going to come find these bodies.
Piles and piles of bodies.
Yeah.
And
it's
I
fun.
Liked that. But at the same time, I was not surprised by it. When he said that, I thought that was cool. But as soon as it showed him right after that in the car, I was like, yeah, they're going to dump the body of one of the other homeless guys he was talking to. He's going to come up and take the shoes. And that's exactly what happened. Which, I mean, is fine.
About the poor wife. Just think about the poor wife. It's just like these random homeless guys they just keep coming up to her apartment. Or
You're
his
the fifth
apartment
one this week. And he never says anything about who he is. He's just like, get out of here, you dame, and give me a tequila and sugar. See?
I do like the fact that they just kind of, the end of the episode just kind of pans up to the stars before they show the next guy turning into, they don't have to explain it. I mean, it's said in the opening, the closing narration, but it's just like, we know that this is going to be a continual pattern that's going to go on and on and on. There's going to be like the best part about this whole episode is the homeless rate population of the city is going to dwindle dramatically because they're all going to be dead in this alleyway. There's going to be a lot of smelly people, but it's going to be, everybody's like, the homeless population is going to go down. Maybe San Francisco should look into these shoes,
like
or LA or something like that. I mean,
all these homeless people, these very nicely dressed homeless people with no shoes, are just dying off in this one borough of the city.
Oh God.
Piles
Oh,
of
man.
well dressed shoeless homeless men. Well,
So
you know,
funny.
hey, I liked that. I thought that's the crazy thing about this episode. All that stuff was well done. I mean, I wish it had been pushed out a bit. Felt a little rushed there towards
Yeah.
the end, but like that, I was okay with all that. That was all well done. But everything in the beginning was just like it's very contrasting. It's almost like, are there two directors here? Or did he just not? I feel like he didn't have enough story, and they were like, "Hey, we got to fluff." Instead of saying, "Let's," and hey, instead of saying, let's extend the interesting part of the episode, instead let's extend this part that's not as interesting. Which, hey, maybe if it was ever more condensed when they first wrote it and they looked at it, maybe the beginning was the more interesting part at that point, and they were like, well, let's extend this out because it's more interesting. But by extending it out, it became less interesting. I don't know.
I mean, maybe Charles Beaumont had like what we were talking about earlier, like with the way the story played out, and Oki Ridge is like, nope, we're gonna have him bitch slap a woman, we're gonna have him hold a bunch of guns, and we're gonna
And
have him
maybe because
say,
I see you had mentioned it too, this OC Rich uncredited. Maybe it was Charles Beaumont who wrote it originally, but it was just short. It was like, hey,
yeah,
here's a short story I got. So this other guy took it and said, well, let me doctor it up and extend it out to the length we need. And maybe that's where it all came from. I don't know.
yeah, it
We
could
may
be
never know.
possible. I do got some trivia. Did you know the music
Oh.
is from the episode The Fever, recycled?
Is it the Fever?
Yeah, it
I knew
is.
it was
That's what I was
recycled. I
saying.
didn't know it
The
was from
soundtrack
Fever.
used recycled music from the previous episode of The Fever.
Okay,
This
well, that's
episode is the
part of the
greatest
problem.
episode ever.
That is part of the problem. Did you
maybe
know
maybe
that this was
what's that?
remade in 1985 and in 2002 as Dead Woman Shoes in 1985, the revival in the 80s, and the 2002 revival, it was Dead Man's Eyes. Is the only original episode to be remade in two of the revival series. Dead Man's Eyes, that just sounds like it would pretty much be that premise that I explained from the John Carpenter thing years earlier, because that came out in, I want to say it was either the late 90s or late 80s or very early 90s. So now Twilight Zone is essentially that show ripped off Twilight Zone, but then Twilight Zone ripped off that show that had ripped it off. It's just a bunch of ripoffs.
Are you saying that this is the Uncharted Tomb Raider effect?
Yeah. Oh,
That
yeah,
you...
it is. Very much so. Soundtrack.
Um,
I wonder if they kept that
the
soundtrack.
yeah, probably. Actually,
Why would they pick
apparently,
this one to remake? I
I
mean,
don't know. I mean, why did they pick the
maybe. Well,
Passerby
actually, that makes
remake?
sense. I mean, why remake something that's great? You don't want to remake like The Invaders or To Serve Man because they're and stuff like that, and because they're great. Take something that had like a decent idea that sucked and remake that.
Like the monsters you
Actually,
do on Maple Street.
yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe Dead Woman's Shoes and Dead Man's Eyes are just great. I have no idea.
So the plot of Dead Man's Eyes is an emotionally distraught woman played by Portia de Rossi, obsessed with bringing her dead husband's murderer to justice, discovers she can see his life and the events surrounding his death through his eyeglasses. And of course, the Dead Man's Shoes 1985 remake
Dead Woman's
was
Shoes.
Dead Woman's Shoes is she's a thrift store. She's a timid thrift store employee. Finds a pair of high. This is basically she turns into from this is like the absent-minded professor, nutty professor, whatever that movie transition movie with Jerry Lewis and was it Nutty Professor? Like where like he transforms into like a high attractive guy from the nerdy timid individual. I think it was Nutty Professor. That's what this is like. A woman's version of Nutty Professor. She turns into a hot woman. Who's it played by?
Kind of want to watch that now, just to compare and contrast to see if it's any better. I mean, the passerby, or that one, it wasn't great, but it was better than the original.
Yeah, just the 2000s music is just what killed it.
Yeah, I mean, the 2000 ones it was better. I'll give it that. Maybe this is improvement. Who knows?
Also, the main actress in the 1985 version was played by Helen Mirren.
Helen Mirren, really? Oh, the ghost or whatever.
No,
or the actual
the timid actor, timid employee.
Oh, well, I definitely gotta watch it now.
Her husband is played by Jeffrey Tambor, or no, her boss is played by Jeffrey Tambor. That's
definitely watching it now.
Yeah,
Helen Mirren's in it.
Well, we'll get there eventually. We're gonna do all the Twilight Zones. Even
Get there in a few years.
even the what's his name? Can't remember. I can't think right now of P and Kill.
Oh, the Jordan Peele,
Justin Peele, Jason Peele, Jordan Peele,
Jordan Peele, Justin, Jacob, John, Jingle,
Jingleheimer Peele.
John, Jacob, Jingle.
God, Jordan Peele? How did he? I can't think.
I know a lot of his
no.
movies have been Twilight Zone-esque. He's cited the Twilight Zone as a lot of inspiration. So
yeah, and you can see that. You can especially see that in like Get Out and not them.
Us.
With Us. Yeah, Us. I don't know, but I don't know if you can say that about his last one, Nope, but
no,
I don't know how Nope is fine. I don't know how a guy whose inspiration is the Twilight Zone did such a terrible Twilight Zone series. I still can't figure that out to this day. Like, it was so
I haven't
bad.
seen it. I can't comment on it.
Well, when we get to it in like 6 years, you'll understand why it's been all 14
Why it got
episodes
canceled.
of it. But yeah, why it got canceled. Anyways, going back on off tangent, back on tangent, or whatever we want to talk about. This episode's all right. It's fine. Is it the worst episode? No, this is definitely not approaching Fever. It's definitely not approaching, Static or any of that nature. But I mean, it's just it's fine.
It's
It's not.
It's
Mia.
It is wasted.
It's like one of those episodes
in some spots.
Yeah, it's like getting into like the lateness of the hour, or a shot an arrow into the air type of area. But we'll get to that in a second. So they dump out the body. Another homeless man gets and puts on the shoes, and that's the end of the episode. And then closing narration.
There's an old saying that goes, if the shoe fits, wear it. But be careful. If you happen to find a pair of size 9 black and gray loafers made to order in the old country, be very careful. You might walk right into the Twilight Zone. Yeah, I feel like we didn't, and people are gonna be like, oh, Triv's not there. You didn't talk much. There's just not much to talk about here.
I think she would agree. Honestly, and no joke, I think she would agree with us. I think she would enjoy the episode, but I think she would agree that it's like last week's episode where there's not a whole lot there. It feels like one of those episodes where they need to fulfill their 36 episode season. So they come up with stories that will fulfill that 30. It's like any TV show when you watch like your favorite TV show. There's always that 1 or 2 episodes or 4 or 5, depending on what show you watch, where you're just like, they're just stalling to get to the next great episode. So they're just fulfilling a promise to CBS. And it's just like,
I mean, I do think that, I'm not saying it's better, but I think last week's episode had more to talk about, if nothing else, in the implication and the what could have been.
Yeah.
What, this one is just really basic. And last week's at least asked a lot of questions. I think that was one of the things I said. Asked a lot of questions that were never answered, or at least put the opportunity for it. And we could have talked about that. This one is just really what it is. And bam.
It's pretty, honestly, it's like one of the most straightforward stories we've talked about. It literally is, man puts on shoes, dead man shoes, and turns into a gangster, and then goes to put revenge on someone. It's just, you could look at One More Pallbearer. It's not as straightforward and not as like, in your face, but it's just like, quality of mercy and stuff like that. It's just that type of.
This has a whole lot better ending than this week's episode.
Yeah. It doesn't have some guy crying it just has a guy going revenge or freedom. He's doing the Braveheart freedom as he's getting blown to hell. So I don't know. This may have been a good episode for Triv not to be on. Anyways, with that said, that is season 3, episode 18, Dead Man Shoes. This is probably the quickest episode you've ever listened to the Fifth Dimension, because there ain't shit to talk about. If we would talk about the hunt next week, which we were going to talk about next week, a lot more to talk about with that episode than there is about this episode. So once again,
I recall that one being a good one.
Yeah, it's actually quite entertaining. I think the hunt is actually a guilty pleasure episode for me.
Kind of funny.
It's about the guy with dog, and he ends up dying, and he has a confrontation with what could be somebody from a certain realm of religion. So we'll talk about that. But anyways, before I actually introduce this episode for next week, let's do it. Let's do the last segment, which is the Twilight Zone ranking list, the greatest ranking list ever, because we all love ranking lists for some weird ass reason. So
I love them.
I know they're everybody's favorite.
Every
Ever.
I love rankings and rankings of rankings, and then ranking the best rankings of rankings. It's just my favorite thing.
Yeah, when we get done with this, the series of the Twilight Zone, we're gonna rank the series, and then we're gonna re-rank our talk about the series. We're just gonna re-rank and redo it all. Just
we're gonna have a
everything's gonna be
solid
different.
year worth of ranking videos for sure. The best ranking the best Twilight Zone episodes that we ranked in the 70s. 70 through 79. And then we'll do the 60s and all the way down to 1. And, you know, we can do each 10. Man, we got a lot of content we're building up to here. Quality content.
Right? I can't wait. I can't wait to rank the quality of the content before
And
we rank
absolutely,
the quality
then we're going to rank our rankings of those rankings of rankings.
Yeah. And then we won't even talk about Twilight Zone anymore. We're just going to rank. We're going to rank stuff we see on our wall. We're going to rank stuff for Jeff.
Rankings.
Yeah, Hefe is going to rank us, and he's going to not like it anymore. And eventually, this we'll do it like a black hole. It'll just like eat itself into a ranking black hole, and you'll love every second of it. You'll be paying us to be more rankings. We'll rank our individual hairs on our heads. You know, we'll just rank whatever.
Absolutely.
We'll rank the pieces of kernels on Triv. You know, we'll just keep going till we can't rank anymore, and then we'll rank that. Anyways, I don't know. Where do you want to put this episode? Is this episode better than The Passerby?
Yeah, that's most episodes. I'm gonna say yeah.
Is this episode better than The Midnight Sun?
I'd say it's actually right around in there, because that's another one that had a lot of potential, that I felt like it had good parts, and then it had some parts that were not so good. So
this is actually going to be quite funny. I think this episode is right above One More Pallbearer. I think I'm right there with you with The Midnight Sun. You know, Midnight Sun at least had an interesting ending. It had the guy that came in with no shirt on, kind of like freaking out, but at least it was an interesting idea that presented itself with the reversal of fortune at the end.
Yeah, I just thought that was kind of contrived. I think this ending is more solid. I don't think it's as much of a, oh my, but I felt like that one, the ending was kind of, I don't know. I felt like when it put it up there, they expected us to be like, oh my God. And I was just kind of like, okay, we've gone to, opposite day. And it was okay. It was better than One More Pallbearer's ending for sure. I mean, I'm okay with that, because Midnight Sun.
So is it better than The Arrival, The Mirror?
No, I don't think I was looking at those. I think 22. I always get 22 mixed up with 2. 22 is the one with the airplane.
That's the Morgue one. Yeah,
the Morgue one
that
right
inspired Final Destination. Yeah,
I would put it either above or below Midnight Sun. So I'm so wishy-washy on that. I mean, if you think it should go below, I'm fine with that, or above it. Either one.
I'm trying to think like the merits of either of those episodes. Which one has I honestly would put it below Midnight Sun, just for the simple fact I think Midnight Sun at least has better merits, because it at least has
easier.
Well, the thing I guess the thing I think about is it at least tries to be interesting at the end and try to like subvert your expectations. Yeah. This is an episode that just is the expectation. Like there's nothing to subvert. It's just a guy puts on shoes and
I mean, I won't lie. I like the ending of this one, but even though it's not a twist, I just like the overall ending of this one more than Midnight Sun's ending. But I think the rest of Midnight, that's only part of the story. I think the rest of Midnight Sun is done better than this one. So I'm going to say Midnight Sun is a stronger candidate. So yeah, I will put this one at 62.
62. Yeah, I think that sounds good. What episode? Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, we're kind of, what is that word called? We're kind of not tiptoeing, but kind of like, I don't know,
dipping our toes in?
No, yeah, dipping our toes in the shoes. No, it's kind of like one of those things where you nitpick stuff that just it's getting into the minute details of like which one.
I do feel like
there's better in this portion.
I do feel like there's quite a gap between 61 and 62, between Midnight Sun and One More Pallbearer. I feel like there is like The other ones, I'm like, yeah, I see it kind of like they're almost interchangeable in some areas, like when they're like one or two apart from each other. I feel like there's a sizable gap in quality between Midnight Sun and One More Pallbearer. After One More Pallbearer, everything after that is like, besides I shot an arrow into the sky, into the air, I didn't feel like that one was. I don't feel like that one deserves to be where it is.
Honestly, I think it was because of how early it was in the season. They just kind of we either forgot about it or got lost in the weeds. Like for instance, like Mr. Den on Doomsday is not a bad episode. I find it kind of enjoyable. It's just a very bland episode.
Yeah.
But like everything else, like Long Live Walter Jameson, Dust, The Jungle Fever, Static X, Static, Trouble Templeton. Where's everybody? Everybody has the unfortunate duty of being the first episode ever. It's just, a lot of these are just like not great at all. They feel like they're just like, hey, here's another episode. Enjoy. Stick it down your throat and be happy. And then we're not happy people.
Nope.
Yeah. So I think that works. So with that said, that was quick. New number 62 is Dead Man's Shoes. Number 1 is, of course, still Eye of the Beholder. Number 83, Trouble with Templeton. Next episode, we talked about it just a few minutes ago, is The Hunt, season 3, episode 19. I really enjoy this episode. I think it's a lot of fun. Apparently, Jacob remembers it too, which is pretty cool, pretty awesome, pretty crazy.
Somewhat. I'm vaguely.
You'll know it when you see it. It's a very basic episode, but it has a lot of fun with it's like what would happen if Jed Clampett died, and what would he do if he never found his millions or billions or whatever. But it's directed by Harold D. Schuster, written by Earl Hamner Jr. I like in the Wikipedia page, it says guest appearance, and it has nobody. You had to go down the list. Arthur Honeycutt is the main actor, and where do I know that name from? We'll talk about it. He's of course a Western guy. Jeanette Molan, Nolan, Titus Moed, some other people, Charles Seal, you'll see. It's pretty fun. You've probably heard of this episode before. Most people out there that listen and watch. So anyways, we'll look forward to that. At this point, I don't know if Triv will be back next week, but hopefully she is. If she is not, we'll be back. Maybe with a guest, maybe not with a guest. We'll be here in some form or fashion. But before I get to Jacob, Triv, of course, is at Trivial Theater. That's where all our content is at. I've decided not to steal her theater or take it back. Watch Meet the Feebles, which I did a collab with her. Don't understand why, but know that I am very, very sorry for trying to steal her theater. So leave it at that. Jacob, you have content, or you hopefully will have content very, very soon. I know you're a very sad boy. Your eyeball keeps staring at you in the background because you haven't released the content yet, but you will very, very soon. Hopefully some point here soon. But where's that at?
You can check that out. I have content on Jacob Manders reviews, but I haven't released anything in a while. But my current channel is Retro JKXY, where I do video game history documentary type things, and I have a new series starting the Friday after this video releases. It was supposed to be this week. It was actually supposed to be the past few weeks, but I could release it prior to this coming out, but I decided to wait one more week to get a little bit more ahead so that I can give you guys the most quality content possible. So it will absolutely, that series will be starting the Friday after this episode goes live. So check that out. I hope you guys enjoy it. It's about the Nintendo 64, and there's a lot of nostalgia for that for people around my age, which is super young.
Yeah, was it 97 that came out, or 99? Was it around
96 in America?
96. Oh, okay.
Oh, it was 96 everywhere. It's 96 everywhere.
Was it?
Except for some European countries was 97, but yeah, 96.
Yeah, that was the first place where Smash Brothers came.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super Smash Brothers, Super Mario 64, of course, best-selling game of that generation. It's also signified a big change for Nintendo, not just in a lot of different ways. It's a lot more interesting console than I remember once I started digging into it, and it has a terrible controller.
Yeah, yes, it does.
Come at me.
Yeah. I remember Rogue Squadron. That's how I remember the N64 too. And,
I've got that.
GameCube is Eternal Darkness. But anyways, I am at Movie Emporium. That's where I hold my content. Both these, Triv and Jacob, have of course guest hosted on that as collabs. Find all that there. I have all kinds of reviews. I don't know what's going to be posting at the point of this review or this podcast episode, so just look forward to whatever I have posted. But otherwise, we're on audio feeds, Anchor, SoundCloud, Audio Boom, iTunes, Google Play, all those places you can find us. Find us there, look for us, and rate, subscribe. But with that said, exactly. but with that said, we're gonna head out. We're gonna leave this Twilight Zone closed for another week. And for myself, Jacob, and of course the missing Corn Hub Triv. We'll see you guys next time in the Twilight Zone. Peace out, motherfucker. We're gonna talk about this wonderful episode.
Yeah. Let me pull up.
Quality shit stain of an episode.
What is this one called? A Walk in His Shoes?
Dead Man's Shoes.
Dead Man's Shoes.
You know, I was complaining last week about titles of episodes. I don't think we got more of a literal title of an episode than
Been walking in a dead man's shoes. That's what it should have been.